You are tuned in to a Fireside chat with Zany Mystic. Join us now on another exciting metaphysical journey. Relax, tune in, drop out, and take a seat by the fire as we explore new realms and possibilities. This is Magenta Pixie. You can find me at magentapixie.weebly.com. But now, here is Zany Mystic and guest. Enjoy the show.
Greetings, everyone, and welcome to a Fireside Chat with Zany Mystic, your host, also known as Lance White. Tonight, my guest is Kimerer Lamothe. Kimerer has just released the first book in a trilogy entitled What a Body Knows, Finding Wisdom in Desire. It's a radical new approach to healing our cultural obsessions with food, sex, and spirit. Kimerer is a dancer, writer, mother, and philosopher. She earned a master's degree in Christianity and culture from Harvard Divinity School and a PhD in theology of the modern West from Harvard University. After 15 years as a student, research fellow, and lecturer at Harvard, she realized it would be necessary for her to leave academic life in order to advance her work further. She needed to create a way of living that would enable her to generate alternatives to the mind-over-body models of human being that dominate our society. Now, her life on the farm, dancing and writing, surrounded by her growing children, is providing her with the opportunities and experiences she needs in order to work out her account of why movement matters. So let's find out where that journey has taken her and what she has discovered along the way by welcoming her to the show now. Hi, Kimerer. How are you?
Fine, thank you, Lance.
Good. You had quite a long stint with higher education and theology at one of the best-known schools in the world. What was that like?
It was very long. I think I was in school for a total of 24 years.
Oh my!
Starting in kindergarten.
Yeah.
Harvard is a wonderful place, and I spent the most time there in that institution, and especially when I was teaching there, I was teaching for the Committee on the Study of Religion, so I was teaching religion classes to these Harvard undergraduates, and they were just wonderful people and great students and great minds, and it was challenging, enriching, and it enabled me to really shape my own work as I was teaching and in conversation with these people.
Well, wonderful. Did you have any preconceived notions about religion before you started studying it?
Yes, I did. In fact, I was raised in a mainstream Protestant Christian church and had had some experiences that were fairly significant in terms of my connection to Jesus and my experience with Christianity. And then as I sort of aged as a teen, I started dancing. And I started having experiences in dance that I felt that I was supposed to have in church. In the dancing, I was really connecting in a deep, embodied way with what felt to me something like spirit. And yet in church, even though I had had some good experiences it felt that something was missing. And so I began this kind of crooked path, and I actually started studying religion to figure out why there is this split in our culture between the kinds of things we think about as spiritual and religious and dance.
Yeah. Did you, were you able to make any conclusions over the years about that? I mean...
Yes, very much. That was really my path. After I graduated so while I was in college, I studied religion, and at that point I was figuring out why religion is the worst possible thing in the world, right? Because it was hostile to this most beautiful thing, which was dance. Yeah. And so I left the college, and then I was a professional dancer for a couple of years, and then I went back to school, and then I went back to the dance world and back to school, and trying to figure out, why is it that we have this split, this schism in our society? And I really, as I unpacked it, I began to trace it to what I consider this mind-over-body sense of ourselves. Yeah. And it's the sense that we have in our culture just by living and participating in the systems of education and economics and politics and capitalism that we have. And we take it so for granted, and it seems so common sense that we're not even aware of the extent to which we identify our I with this sort of mental movement that happens up somewhere in our head, where our bodies are these things in which we live, for which we're responsible, which we need to make fit in to society, to conform to. We need to impose these schedules or schemas or diets or plans or on them to make them do what they're supposed to. So what I felt like I needed to do after spending all that time in the academy studying this problem, and I did it and studied it in a lot of different ways, was to really trace it to those just the small moments in our lives where we make the most basic decisions about who we are and what we value. Because it's in those small moments, so what I decide to eat for breakfast, and how I decide to respond to my partner, and how I make the small and big decisions about what to do with my life, that we're actually living and expressing that mind over body sense of ourselves.
It's interesting because as you were speaking, I was getting an image of people filled with beliefs and told what to do, not having the freedom of spirit. In other words, having to conform and not feeling the connection to spirit, because spirit is part of our body and part of ourselves and part of life, and we're told that so many things are immoral or wrong or bad, and that kind of shuts you down. Yes.
It does. And it causes us to be constantly looking outside of ourselves for the answers that we need. And we're more willing to trust kind of images and voices and that seem to be coming from outside of ourselves. We grow up not learning how to listen to the kind of movements that are happening in our sensory selves all the time. So part of what I feel my work is trying to do, in my heart I'm a dancer, and it's really, in dance I found such powerful ways of knowing and being and becoming that I feel our culture would do so well to make more use of. So I feel that part of what I'm trying to do is to say, we have trained our senses in a particular direction. We've learned to move into our brains and up into our ideals. We've learned to imagine and visualize these transcendental, very highly abstract worlds, and we can move into those worlds. But that's only part of what we can do. The other way in which we have of knowing is to move down into our bodies and out through our senses, and to open up and to allow our bodies to cultivate the ability to listen through our bodies. Because it's not just like, there's some people, sometimes people who are trying to address this issue will say, oh, well, there's wisdom in your body, you just have to listen to what your body says. And it's as if your body's just sort of telling you, or it's as if it's written there. But it's not just written there. It's not like you can turn your brain from outside to inside and then just see what's written there. It's actually a different way of experiencing yourself. You actually drop into your sensory self and experience the movement that's happening in every moment of your life. And it's in that movement that you're going to find whatever wisdom is there.
Interesting. Now, speaking of movement, didn't you literally move into a natural environment to raise your children on a farm?
Yes.
Talk about why you did that and how important that is and what you've learned from that.
Sure. And it was part of the whole decision to leave the academic world, at least for a while. I really felt, for me as a dancer, the times and the places where I felt most inspired to move have been when I'm outdoors, when I'm on a beach, or when I am in the woods, or when I'm on a field, or in the mountains. It's those times where I feel most inspired to just move, for the pleasure of it, for the joy of it, to express, whatever it is about our connection to the natural world that stirs something to life for us. So I knew, as soon as my partner and I met in the early 90s, we were on a trajectory to at some point leave the city, buy some land, and to create a place for us to do our art. He's a musician, and he writes amazing music to which I dance. So we wanted to create a place where we could do our dance and our music, and then I could write as well about the issues that so concern me.
Right.
So we had this. So in the early 90s, we started what we called our 5-year plan, and that was we would take turns being primary income of our growing family, and the person who wasn't the primary income would be taking care of the children, and we would guarantee that person had 4 to 6 hours a day to work on his or her art. So Jeffrey was the first one. You know, I sort of sat him down at one point and said, okay, we've got 2 full-time jobs. We do not need 2 full-time jobs. One of us should quit and do his or her art. And if it's not going to be you, it's going to be me. so he took the first turn because I had just completed the PhD program at that time. And I had this wonderful job opportunity at Harvard. So while I was at Harvard, I was the primary income person, and he was home working on his music and taking care of our young children at that point. And so there came a time where it was then time for us to switch, and I was going to move to working on my art and taking care of the kids, and Jeff was going to move into the primary income plot. And it was at that point where we really started reconsidering, is this the time, is this the moment for us now to really act on this dream, to move out to the country and to create the place which we think we really need in order to do the kind of work we want to do. And it just so happened that as we were kind of moving into this open space, my daughter, who was 7, decided she wanted to help us along because she really wanted animals, horses in particular. Nice. And we were living, in a suburban area where we couldn't have a horse, and we just said to her, well, Jessica, when we move out to the country, you'll be able to get a horse. So she sat down at the computer one day and decided to Google real estate. So she Googled farms in Vermont, which is where we thought we would end up, and she found this place. And
goodness.
She said, Mom, come here. And I took a look, and I said, oh, my goodness.
Oh,
because it looked like something we could afford. It looked like the house was a real fixer-upper. I mean, there was not one room that was habitable, but the piece of land that it was on was just gorgeous.
Oh, my.
So, we took a look at it and put an offer on it that day, and we moved in a month and a half. So it just all happened right at once. So it was really kind of, for us, it was really just, the universe kind of falling in line. It's one of those times saying, yep, this is the moment, time to go, live your dream, create the space you need in order to really think the thoughts and create the art that you feel compelled to do.
Wonderful. Well, of course, that must have entailed a little bit of adjustment because then you had to fix up the house before you could actually, continue with your plan. Now, were you going to continue with one person being the caretaker and the other person, or was that part already over? You had accumulated enough money and you were both going to stay and do your art.
Right. No, that was part of the challenge. We hadn't accumulated the money. We thought we would have our income streams, and then we would, flow with those streams to the new place.
Right.
But it was actually just the beginning of my turn to not be primary income. And so Jeff moved here then with the extra challenge of trying to figure out how he would generate the income. So and it ended up being a very creative time for us both, because he, in addition to making music, designed sounds for keyboards, so he was able to do some telecommuting and work that way. So there was this long period of time where we were both at home working, which
wonderful.
Yeah, it was wonderful. Yeah, it was wonderful.
Wonderful. And then, of course, you probably got the opportunity to do something which I think everyone on the planet should have the chance to do, since I have my own little ranch out in the country, is to grow your own food.
Yes. Yes.
There's just nothing like getting your hands in the dirt and planting the seeds and watering them and watching them come up, and that is non-genetically modified seeds I'm speaking of now.
Right. Right. You are so right. I mean, I feel like we didn't know that we were going to move to a farm. That wasn't necessarily a part of it, but the farm